Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for joining us tonight. Just let a few more people come on into the room. Alrighty, I might get started. Hopefully you can all hear me. So welcome everyone, and thanks for joining us for the Culture and Nature Festival webinar, Taking Action, and the screening of the short film, Our Catchment. So my name is Zaylee, and I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator for the Port Phillip EcoCentre. And as we begin, I would first like to acknowledge the Yalukit Willem clan of the Bunwarong language group, who are the traditional owners of the land in which the EcoCentre is located. I'd also like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri people, as I am working on their land today. I want to pay my respects to all elders, past, present, and emerging. And I also want to note that sovereignty of the land and the waterways was never ceded. So tonight, we're very lucky to have three amazing panelists join us for a chat after the film screening. We have Chenxin Tu, Saniya D'Souza, and Hilda Peloso. Now, Chenxin, Saniya, and Hilda all have such diverse backgrounds in work, study, and play, and each brings a really unique perspective to community engagement through their own experiences here and in their home countries. So I am so pleased that we have all of them here today to share their experiences and their journeys. A little bit of background, Ben, if you want to turn everyone's videos on, and panelists, if you'd like to turn your videos on, please, so that everyone can meet you. Thank you. Good to see you all. So Chenxin grew up in a small village in China's most forested and mountainous region, moved to Australia over 10 years ago. Adamant to maintain her connection to nature that she developed back in China, Chenxin has marked each of her birthdays by planting trees since 2017. Very impressive. And her birthday happens to fall around National Tree Day each year, which is the first Sunday in August. When Chenxin began high school in South Melbourne, she quickly learned about the Port Phillip EcoCentre, and she registered to volunteer. Chenxin has since volunteered across a range of projects, including a revegetation project to protect the penguins on St Kilda Pier, mollusk surveys across Port Phillip beaches, and Sea Star pest removal program with Earth Care St Kilda. And it was at the EcoCentre that she developed a program to encourage Melbourne's vast Chinese community involvement in environmental volunteering, which is really cool. Here, Chenxin developed a special Mandarin language workshop for the Chinese community. She promoted this on popular Chinese sites and social media like WeChat. So the 2018 workshop was a huge success and led to Chenxin being named as one of the EcoCentre's inaugural Multicultural Coastal Ambassadors, which is a program that has now grown to feature a number of Multicultural Bay ambassadors, including another one of our amazing panelists tonight, Saniya. So in addition to her EcoCentre work, Chenxin has been involved in citizen science projects with RMIT University, the Dolphin Research Institute, and Scouts Victoria. She's currently up in the ACT studying environment and sustainability at ANU, which is really cool. Great to see you. And I'm really keen to hear a little bit more about what you've been up to. So we've also got Saniya. Now, Saniya was involved in our most recent EcoCentre Multicultural Bay Ambassador program in the summer of 2019 and 20. Being an international environmental science student from Mumbai, Saniya heard about the opportunity to join the Bay Ambassador program and felt that with her bachelor's degree and her passion, she fit the brief and she applied. I'm glad she did. Because during the 5-month ambassadorship, Saniya, along with her colleagues in the Multicultural Ambassador program, participated in regular volunteer activities with the EcoCentre and affiliate organisations. She engaged in multiple programs with staff, and each of the ambassadors hosted their very own multicultural event to conclude the program. So I'd be keen to hear about that, Saniya. Saniya is now at the beginning of her environmental science career and has found a new love and appreciation for Australian native plants and animals. Saniya has made many personal changes to her life, especially reducing waste where possible. Good on you. And last but certainly not least, we have Hilda. So Hilda is an international student from the Solomon Islands. During her final year, when she was completing her bachelor's degree in environmental science at RMIT University, one of her supervisors connected her with the EcoCentre's very own marine biologist, Farm Sharko. Hilda promptly became a volunteer for the Clean Bay Blueprint project and helped with the very, very detailed and tedious microplastic analysis, spending countless hours separating microplastics at the EcoCentre lab. During her time at the EcoCentre, she's volunteered also to help during the St Kilda Zero Waste Festival and the EnviroFest. So now, in her last semester of her honours program at RMIT, Hilda will be returning home soon with a wealth of knowledge and passion to share amongst her community. So I'm really keen to hear a little bit more about that Clean Bay Blueprint micro plastic analysis there, Hilda. And yeah, I thank you all again for joining us. So now we're going to have a look at the short film. Before we, and when we get back rather, we're going to have a chat with Chenxin, Saniya and Hilda about their own experiences. While you're watching, I really encourage you to please put any questions you have into the Q&A, just the tab down the very bottom there. We're not going to be opening up the chat generally tonight. So anything that you would like to say or ask, even a comment, pop it into the Q&A and we'll certainly get through that. So Our Catchment is a film produced as a part of the EcoCentre's Global Melbourne project, aiming to better incorporate diverse voices into environmental action. Our Catchment was shot, directed and produced by Michael J. Lutman and supported by the Victorian Government Port Phillip Bay Fund. I think we have Michael here tonight, so hi Michael. As environmental concerns such as climate change and plastic pollution grow, so are the efforts to take action. The City of Melbourne is a wonderfully diverse place full of global citizens doing their part to make a big difference. Focusing on 4 inspiring multicultural stories converging around the Port Phillip EcoCentre, Our Catchment shows how multiple perspectives give us a better opportunity to tackle these challenges, as well as strengthen the community effort to sustain long-term environmental well-being. So without further ado, we present Our Catchment and we hope you enjoy it.
When I was a kid, I have this beautiful garden. My father had this kind of background, just gardening there. And every Saturday, I just there with him, and I just have this really connection with the land. When I have 30, I have a really good job, I'm a really good landscaper. But suddenly, I look in just an aesthetic way to look the nature. And I feel really empty because I spent all my professional career in a computer. And I take all my money and I quit the job that I have, and I travel all Chile, Argentina, Uruguay. I start to understand for myself what is I want in my life.
I came from China and I came to Melbourne Uni when I was 19. Screening the Baykeeper film in our student accommodation. There was one thing, when you open up the bird, all litter. She's like, this bird lives very far away from the city. I was so stunned. I was like, what we've done here has impacted creatures so far away, but then think about what we've done to the creatures actually around us.
I was living in a little town in Venezuela. When I was a child, I need to go to the city to learn. I wanted to be an animator and travel the world and learn some language. That was my wish. It's quite magical in my life because with Animal Planet Discovery Channel, they contacted me to be part of a TV program called Planet Action. It was looking to someone who was an artist, Latin American, crazy. This program was eco-reality TV. We went to Honduras and then Belize. In Belize, we cleaned the island. It was unbelievable. It looks like an artist create a landscape with plastic. So that was a big experience that made amazing impact in my art, in my way of to see the world and to see nature and humanity.
I came here from the Solomon Islands to study environmental science in RMIT University because of the deforestation and climate change that is happening back in my country. My professor, he asked if I have like a work experience, and I said no, I have never had a work experience. He says, oh, you can volunteer at the EcoCentre and get credited.
When we're thinking to come into Australia, one of my main kind of thinking and ideas was, please let me try to connect with the community there. I spent all the 2 years here, go to Billy Nursery, go to a Royal Botanic Garden, and different voluntary work. For me, my compass was the EcoCentre, but most of all, the people. And I understand how big they are and how they educate the kids. And so have the patience for everybody to just explain what they're doing. And this generosity, I think, is just take my heart.
And they posted something about the Multicultural Bay Ambassador. I was part of them as a summer ambassador. We had to do a project that we gather a specific group to make them more aware of the environmental issues. I aimed at the people who are same age group because what I realized is that people at my age, like university, were kind of too busy with our study. I took the group of 20-ish to St Kilda, which is quite huge for me as well, and show them the nurdles.
When the people throw plastics or cigarette butts in the street, go through the drain, they don't think about that's going to end up in the ocean.
In here, we get to do the plastic analysis. I also help supervise the other volunteers, set up the area, and then we get the sample, and then we just separate the microplastics from the organics, put them into different sizes, and then we record the numbers. They're mostly those that are less than 5 millimeters, and there we found heaps of them. Just one small pile, you can find like more than 100. It's really too much plastic in the water.
I went to RMIT to study public art. The teacher asked me, what is your message? All my drawings and all my stencil art, it was mostly people. But those characters have always a wave around their resonance. Everything vibrates. My public art has to be something that is helping to people to open their eyes and to value the environment and to love the environment and to care about the environment.
He's there. Sorry, mate. Oh, it's one of native, first time I saw one. And every native plant I try is growing so quickly. We need to start thinking about how you can develop the cities in the way that we feel again in the nature and not outside the nature. I think Melbourne is an amazing city about to create these kind of things. I just want to bring all this nature for the people, but not for the people they already connect. The people is not connected.
All these issues, plastics, food, economies, forests, the whole world is connected to water.
If we see the world as a body, as an organism, if I will not look after the lakes, the rivers, the ocean, if that collapses completely, everything collapses.
Wow, there is polystyrene. It is really a good experience for me in EcoCentre because it has helped me to make people aware of the plastics. We need to have our oceans more cleaner.
EcoCentre, the council, local people, beach patrols, it's a big community around Port Phillip Council that is getting more and more together and more things happening.
What they're doing is something quite meaningful and just trying to get government's awareness about environmental protection. And I took part in it, like small contribution, but I took part.
When I do it, especially if I'm involved with other people, I don't feel like I'm from another country. I don't feel like I'm Venezuelan or from anywhere. I'm just, Earth citizen. I'm from here, we're all from here. That's how I feel.
Wow, some amazing stories there, hey? It's so fantastic to hear those different perspectives. So each one of those people, including yourself, Hilda, have such diverse backgrounds. And I mean, Victor was an artist. He wasn't even necessarily studying environmental science, or he wasn't working in the field, but yet he felt that sense of connection to the earth and to waterways. And as he said, he actually called himself an earth citizen. And that's just it, isn't it? We're citizens. We've all got to do our part. We all have the right to feel connected to nature, no matter what it is that we do in our everyday lives. So yeah, some really inspiring stories there about our connection to land, the waterways and community. And each of those stars has had a fantastic contribution in their local community whilst helping the environment. Again, Hilda, it was so nice to see you on screen there and just to hear a little bit more about your story as well. So once again, this is the audience's chance to ask any questions that you have about anyone's experiences. I know we didn't necessarily get to see Saniya or Chenxin in that video, but please do feel free to ask them any questions. I mean, we've heard a little bit about their backgrounds as well. So to start off with, I would actually like to ask a few questions. Chenxin, the first one is for you. I'm interested to know if you experienced any sort of resistance from your community at the beginning of your journey while inspiring them to get involved in environmental issues and volunteering their time.
Yeah. So as with anything, starting out is always the hardest, taking the first step. And the one thing that we encountered the most was breaking that sort of perception or the stereotype around environmental volunteering and what the environment around us, what caring for environment actually is. Because for most people, not just particular to in Chinese culture, that's just involving, oh yeah, I'm just going to the beach to pick up rubbish, but involves a lot more around that. You're being more connected and you develop a deeper appreciation for the things that are around you, like all the marine animals around you, and just the scenery and the calm that it can bring to you, to your mind. And so to combat that, so me and Oscar, so one of the other ambassadors in my year, we created this film that took the audience to a dive underneath the bay, and it wasn't, it didn't have any background introduction to it. It was just like a journey down into the Port Phillip Bay to raise awareness that we have so much diversity around us that that's waiting for us to actually protect and preserve as well. But also just having that awareness is a start for many people to realize that, this exists around in my environment. So raising awareness and breaking through the stereotypes through that way, that was our first step.
Fantastic. And I hear exactly what you're saying. It's about just introducing people to the concept of looking at nature from a different lens, isn't it? Yeah. Thank you, Chenxin. That was fantastic. Saniya, I would like to ask you next. How did you tackle this during your time as one of the Bay ambassadors? Did you come across these barriers very often with resistance from your community?
I would say not so much resistance, but I would say lack of awareness again, and just people from where I come from, environmental action or like caring for the environment is not something that's taken too seriously. I would say there's not a lot of awareness about environmental issues and what we need to do. So in my case, it wasn't resistance. I would say it was always something that was looked down upon, I would say, in a way, because where I come from, so in school, environmental science is sort of like an optional subject where you don't really do it, or if you do it, doesn't really matter. So people, when I decided to study my master's in environmental science in here, so people were kind of like, why are you doing that? So it was sort of like in countries like I would say developing countries like India and things like that, careers like traditional careers like becoming a doctor or engineer is something that's most people want to do, and nobody really wants to, take environmental action. Or some people have this attitude that, what can we do about it? So that was something that I felt from my community, as in not so much resistance, but just not being interested in that area. And that's what I tried to tackle when I was a Bay ambassador, just getting people more interested and getting them more connected to the nature here in Melbourne, because they're not from here. So that's something that I had to, yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. Hilda, I'd also love to hear your perspective on this. I know your journey was a little bit different to both Chenxin and Saniya, who are a little bit more involved in that sort of community engagement role of the ambassadors. But you had a lot to do with the Clean Bay Blueprint project, and you were actually a team leader for other volunteers working in that space. Did you experience any sorts of resistance? And I suppose I'm also interested to hear in how you explained what you were doing to your community outside of the EcoCentre as well.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't been like actually involved connecting with other people outside. So like, I wouldn't say like I haven't got like any pressure or restriction from the community, but like doing like some of my environmental work, like field work from uni, and doing my honors project, like mostly I've been getting like having people coming to me asking me like, what are you doing? What are you up to? What's the result? What are you doing? And stuff like that. So I've been getting more like people coming up asking me like, yeah, they're more eager to know what I'm doing. So yeah, I think like, I feel like, and at the same time, like back in my country, I think like same as Saniya, it is the awareness that is lacking. Like we do have problems like pollution and all that, but I feel like people are not aware of how the things they do are affecting our environment. That is what is happening. Yeah. So yeah, that's my thought. Yeah.
Thanks, Hilda. Actually, I'd really love to hear a little bit more about what you were doing with the EcoCentre. I'd like to hear a little bit more about the microplastics analysis that you did.
Okay. So yeah. So we the plastic analysis we did at the EcoCentre lab. It's Neil that collected the sample from Yarra and Maribyrnong River, and then they got dried, and then we put them on the sheet of papers, and then we separate them into like different. First, we have to separate them like from the organics and the plastics, and then separate them again according to size and the type of plastic that are there, like soft plastic, polystyrene, nodules, like even those like less than 2. You have to like, we tried our best to like get everything in, separate everything. So it's, like you said, it's really tedious, and yeah, it takes a lot of effort, but yeah, like all of the volunteers that come, they become more aware of like the plastic. They really want to help. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you, Hilda. Yeah, I haven't actually had a chance to have a go at sorting out the really, really minuscule little pieces of microplastic. I've got the chance to sort out the bigger ones, and that's a little bit easier. I could only imagine how hard that would be, but so important. Right? So important that we understand exactly what is going on out there. So just for everyone that's watching at home, if you don't already know about our Clean Bay Blueprint project, basically this project and this initiative by the Port Phillip EcoCentre and our project partners, it sought to build on the previous success of our Litter Hotspots project, which was called Turn Off the Tap. So by continuing litter research to provide sound scientific evidence to inform positive change for the environment through a few different ways, we did monthly microplastic trawls in the Yarra and Maribyrnong rivers with the Yarra Riverkeeper Association, which is what Hilda was referring to, building on 5.5 years worth of data. So there's a lot of data there. And this type of research had never been done in Australia before. So it's the first of its kind. We collaborated with community groups around the Bay to conduct baykeeper litter audits, so we understood more about what was actually happening on the bays, what was accumulating, where it was coming from, as well as collaborating with organisations such as the Dolphin Research Institute, who conducted little audits with school groups. So really, really good for that educational engagement, as well as the RMIT Plastics Lab, caught microplastics for their polymer types. So to really understand more about that plastic itself, you know, they've got special equipment. They can figure a lot of things out with it, which is fantastic. So we just get to understand a little bit more about where it's come from. If you are interested, and I highly recommend having a look at it, we have a full report now that Farm and Neil have been working very, very hard on, as well as our project partners, and thank you to RMIT as well. The report can be found on our website, so we might pop that in the chat. You can download it, have a read through. It's very, very interesting. It is confronting, but it is so important that we understand exactly what is going on out there, so that we can inspire to make our own changes and to share with the people that we know, and to work on an individual level on what we can do to fix some of the problems. All right, I'm going to have a quick look and see. I see a couple of questions that have popped up here. I'm just going to... here we go. Here's a really good one I would like to ask. So, and I'll go to each of the panel members just to get your opinion on this. What from your knowledge, is the most polluted item in the world? So what is the most common thing you think, based on what you've done in your education, in your engagement and your research, what is the most polluted item?
It's cigarette butts.
Yeah, that.
Yeah.
Because I remember when I was involved with Neil with the catchments sampling for the microplastics, and he said that during the induction day, we actually went out just outside the EcoCentre to look at some of the drains there, and we looked, and the most thing that we picked up was cigarette butts, and he said that was a trend across all the catchments in Melbourne and elsewhere in the world.
Even when we were doing litter audits on St. Kilda Beach, we found lots of cigarette butts, and even on the streets when we were doing the street to bay project, like just looking at all the items that could be washed out when it rains, we found like 70 to 80 cigarette butts in like this little stretch of the road. So yeah,
it's pretty confronting, isn't it? What did you find, Hilda, when you were doing the analysis? Was there a common item that you kept coming across?
Yeah, we've been we found like cigarette butts, but mostly like other plastic fragments, like those that breaks off from like big hard plastics. Yeah, which we don't know where they're from. Maybe from plastic bottles or other hard plastics. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I think I remember reading that the most commonly found item since 1999 during the Clean Up Australia cleanup days was cigarette butts. Yeah. But I hear what you're saying, Hilda, because I think we probably actually don't know how much plastic is actually out there, because when we're walking along the beach, we don't necessarily see the microplastics straight in the front of our eyes, do we? We see things like cigarette butts. So it'd be really, really interesting to understand that a little bit more. All right, thank you for that. Okay, another great question from the audience here. And again, I will ask each of you. We might start with Chenxin. Do you have a main source of inspiration for what you do?
Definitely. So as you mentioned before, I did grow up in a place where the environment was something that I was very close with. So I grew up in like a rural part of China, and so surrounded by forests and mountains, where I would, go out with my cousins on the weekends or after school to go and play and have a look at the creeks and waterfalls and all the little critters in them. And that was, what fostered my connection to the environment. And then as I grew up and then moved to Australia, and then around after 2012-ish, and when I returned to China, a lot of so we used to drink from wells, and by that point, we could no longer drink from our wells when I returned. And a lot of our rivers had become polluted because of the shift to urbanization. And even to this day, our village is getting torn down because they're building roads and highways for new bullet trains, and it's tearing through, tearing people apart, tearing communities apart, and they're moving us like by force into apartments, and that's not what we can control. And also in our part of China, we get hit by typhoons every year. So, the impacts of climate change, we do feel that very intimately and at first hand as well, even though I'm here, but I'm still connected very much to that part of, where I came from, as well as my family. So helping the environment is just something that, that's grown up with me. And so that's been my, inspiration to keep going, despite, my parents not really approving of me coming here to study all this way and to study environmental science. Yeah.
Wow. So it's directly impacting you. So yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Chenxin. Hilda, I'd love to hear what your main source of inspiration is for what you do.
So why I decided to do environmental science at start is when I went back home for holidays at my dad's village, we were on the boat and we were passing one of the like village, and then one of my uncles like talked about like, oh, there's like a lake at the top there, and it has like a legend to it and stuff. And I've seen like there's so many logging activities that is happening around that area, and I feel like I've seen like the people are not aware of what logging does to the environment and stuff like that. That's why I'm like, oh, I need to like learn to study this and like come back, educate people like what logging does to it. And at the same time, like, yeah, I'm from an island country, so we've been experiencing climate change. Some of our islands have been sank recently. So yeah, it's one of the inspiration that I want to do this study environmental science. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you, Hilda. Thank you for sharing. Saniya, keen to hear what's inspired you as well.
Yeah, so my story is again similar as well. I come from a small coastal town near Mumbai. Actually, and it's like a fishing town. And when I was small, I used to go. When I was young, I used to go to the farm with my grandfather and help him out in the farm. And I think that was sort of my first connection to nature. Just like all the golden sun shining through in the morning, and just all the butterflies and all the firefly, the dragonflies, and I was really fascinated by all of that, and I was like, oh my god, this is so beautiful. And just over the years, like Hilda and Chenxin mentioned, I have seen changes in my country as well, from like my own experiences and from the stories that my grandparents tell me about how things used to be and how things are now, like with the groundwater as well. The groundwater table is going down, and there are a lot of water problems as well. And just when I was also doing my studies, I used to travel to Mumbai every day, and we used to pass over these little rivers, and also there's a big creek, and I've seen people just throw trash out of the trains into the creek, and also seen the little rivers, and they're totally polluted. The water's black, it's smelly, and that was really sad because I grew up in a place that was so beautiful, and over the years I've seen it change, and that is why I wanted to do something about it and make people aware. Just little things, just not throwing the trash out of the train, but just carrying it home with you and putting it in the bin. So little things like that. So that's why I wanted to come here and study.
Fantastic. So I think the common theme amongst the three of you is that your life experiences have inspired you to take action, essentially. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Okay, another question here. I'm going to ask Chenxin because I know you were involved in the microplastics analysis as well, so you might know the answer to this. What are nurdles and why should we worry about them?
So nurdles are so with a lot of our plastic products, say with toys or drink bottles, So nurdles are like these little pellets, plastic pellets that come shipped, and then so they'll be melted down and made into all sorts of plastic products. But because they're so small, some of them do eventually escape into our water. Say a ship might, leak during the shipment process, or through our daily use, like wear and tear of our products. So that ends up being microplastics or even fibers from synthetic clothing. So nurdles are the source of, most of the plastics in our lives. And we can sometimes see that on beaches as well, with especially with Hilda, if you've been sampling, a lot of that. And should we worry about them? Definitely, because they're pretty small as well, and if ingested by the marine animal and any other sort of animal that might mistake them for food, or because they're so small that we don't really see them, it does become, like we've seen in that film, ingested, and then leads to the deaths of many animals that we do not know about, even though that wasn't our intention at the start. So what we can do in our lives is obviously switch to plastic-free alternatives if we can, because we do realize that there is a cost to living plastic-free. But so what we can do right now is basically try to do the more, take actions in our daily lives, and obviously pick up all the rubbish and advise against, anyone else littering in the streets. That's just something that we can start doing on a personal level.
Fantastic. Thank you, Chenxin, for explaining that to the audience. And isn't it confronting how many nurdles we do find on the beach when we're actually looking for them? Often they sort of camouflage into the sand and we don't realize that they're there. Okay, I've got a question relating to multiculturalism. So I'd like to understand from each of you how you think we could really utilise our amazing multicultural society here in Melbourne to learn from one another when it comes to connecting with nature. So my question is it's a long-winded one, but can we use multiculturalism to empower people when it comes to community-nature connections? Is it through community events aimed at particular cultural groups, perhaps? Or is it about sharing across cultures and integrating ideas? What do you think we need to what do you think we need to do to take advantage of our cultural history to empower future generations? It's a big question. Does anyone have any initial thoughts on that? So is it about us just focusing on one cultural group and working with them? Or is it about us sharing across cultures to try and help to inspire? From your experiences, what do you think is the first best step to try and engage people?
For me, so personally, so thinking about it in terms of, thinking that things are separate or that cultures are separate is another concept that we can see when we looked at environment as well. When people think that, that we're separate from the environment, we think that our economy or society is separate from the environment and that we're not all interconnected. That's the cause of most of our environmental problems. And when we work on tackling problems, we need to also be able to see that interconnection between people and everyone else around us to be able to work together to, actually address the problem. Because all these environmental issues have a lot of, complex roots, and it's not about, so there are cultural aspects that we can address, and each culture has their own wealth of knowledge. But with this wealth of knowledge from all the cultures combined, then we can, work together to have a lot of solutions. So something that I learned while studying geography in year 12 last year was we did quite a lot of case studies on desertification and melting glaciers and ice sheets, as well as deforestation. And one of the things that we learned about was the Great Green Wall of Africa. And so that's where beneath the Sahara desert, there's a band of sand that's like, it's almost inhospitable for the farmers there, for the, inhabitants there that really depend on agriculture. And to combat all the desertification problems and the lack of water, what they did was actually had an Australian scientist who was there to educate them on the benefits of agroforestry, the importance of forests, so that they weren't seen as a competing resource anymore. And now so they're coexisting with nature, as well as being able to support their livelihoods. And the idea of the Great Green Wall also originated from China on the other side of the world, where in the northern China, where desertification is now pretty severe because of last century's developments, they've now had a Great Green Wall China, and that idea has been also taken into account to Africa as well, to help them regreen the whole continent, and to help people sustain themselves while taking care of the environment. So we need to look at cultures working together in order to solve the question, to solve all these problems. So I think, like that film, we said we are Earth citizens. So if we can think of ourselves as a whole community, regardless of our nationality, and learn from each other, I think that's a very good start.
Thanks, Chenxin. Hilda or Saniya, did you have any additional thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I think she covered pretty much all of it. Even the same way, I feel like every culture has a different perspective to add to it and has their own wealth of knowledge. So I think it's always a good idea to, work together with all of the cultures rather than just working with one culture and, just leaving the rest. Because I think that way we can all sort of work together. And like, again, in the video, that's a really good line, like, planet, we are all citizens of the planet, and regardless of our nationalities and cultures. So yeah, I think, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Okay, so there's a question from the audience again. So I'm passionate about environmental action, but some of my friends aren't. Is there anything you do to inspire your friends to take action? So we'll go to each of you for this one. Hilda, would you like to start?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, because in my friend group, I'm the only environmental science person, and I've become changing my diet to become more vegetarian to vegan now, and like yeah, thinking like how am I supposed like teach my friends, but I feel like organizing I like beach cleaning up the beach will be a good start to become more connected to the environment and stuff. Yeah,
absolutely. So bringing them along to some of those activities that you enjoy, sharing some of your ideas. Yeah. Saniya or Chenxin, did you have any thoughts on that one and how you inspire your friends?
Okay, so I'll go. So in high school, so with the tree planting idea, so in year 9, when I went, it was around my birthday, and I said hey to my friends around me. So this year I'm not having a birthday party. Well, if you want to celebrate my birthday, come with me to the tree planting. And so every year after that, I kept posting about that, hello again, the tradition, come along tomorrow and, celebrate my birthday and also give back to the things, the environment around us. So that's one way of getting them into realizing that, conserving and protecting the environment around us isn't just about what we usually perceive in the media or what might be stereotyped to us as well. And in that process, they develop that connection to environment as well. And while I was at Microb during my high school years, I was part of the environment committee in all 4 of my years there. And we organized quite a lot of student initiatives because we need to start early, obviously, to actually empower a lot of students to take action later in their lives as well. And so a lot of initiatives that we did included, hands-on stuff like we actually had, thrift shops at school to educate them on, the importance of avoiding fast fashion and the impacts of fast fashion on our society. As well as, so last year, I remember we negotiated with a couple of companies to sell their products to our students for like a lower price, so that at a more affordable price, such as reusable metal straws and even bubble tea cups that we knew a lot of our girls were, frequent bubble tea drinkers or, boosts. So just these things, making the alternatives more accessible and enlightening them to that, there are these options that you can take part in. And I also ran a gardening club in my school. So I was called the King Green Beans. And so that was to empower people to take action on their food miles, because a lot of us don't realize where our food comes from and the huge emissions involved in transporting that food to us in front of us. And so that was one of my main goals in getting people, just starting for them to be aware of the alternatives, that there is something that we can do despite all this anxiety around us, or feeling like politicians aren't listening to us. There's still something that we can do at a personal level to make a change.
Thank you, Chenxin. So very similar to Hilda's sentiment there of actually showing your friends exactly what they can do and helping to inspire them through that. And I think your passion would definitely shine through there, Chenxin and Hilda. I can see it. I can see that would be an infectious thing for your friends to be able to resist very easily. Saniya, did you have any further thoughts on that?
Yeah, even with me, it's the similar thing. Again, I'm the only environmental science person in our group. So a lot of people, I think, sometimes it's not that they don't want to take action; they're just not aware of the things that are happening. So in my little ways, I try to make them aware, not to be annoying or anything, but just when we go out or something, and if I see some of my friends smoking and trying to just flick the bud somewhere on the street, I will just like subtly go and be like, you know what, this is the most littered item, you can just check it in the so things like that, just small things. So, and even in my personal life, I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I try to take as much action as I can and use sort of alternatives. And then my friends are usually curious, so they'll be like, oh, what's that? And then I will just further say, okay, you can use this or you can use that, or things like that. Or even just gifting people and eco-friendly options on their birthdays, like keep cups or things like that. And just explaining that if someone's a coffee drinker, like, hey, you can use this instead of using a coffee cup and just chucking it every time you finish using it. So I think those are some of the ways that I just try to make everybody aware around me, just by personally making changes in my life, but also sort of giving those little nudges wherever I can. So yeah, that's pretty much.
So leading by example to take action, hey?
I try.
Yeah.
Not perfect,
Absolutely.
but yeah, whatever I can do. Yeah.
And I think it's as much about all the little things that you do to lead by example, isn't it? Yeah. Thank you. Now, the three of you are very avid volunteers, do amazing volunteer work. So I'd like to ask each of you what you feel is the benefit of volunteering. Chenxin, would you like to go first?
Yeah, so the benefits of volunteering, there's quite a lot of them. First of all, you get to meet a lot of like-minded people, and especially if we feel, anxious about the state of our climate, the state of our environment, and that we feel like, we're kind of alone and one person can't do much. But then when you do go out to volunteering, you're doing the stuff with other people and you meet those other people who are equally as passionate as you. You don't feel quite so alone anymore. And also you now have a network of people who you could be working with in the future to develop things with them if you really wanted to. So that's one of them. And also it does allow you to relax. So, throughout my years high school, I kept volunteering despite, having a lot of other things to deal with. And that was one of the things that kept me going along, that kept me, less anxious about or less stressed about work as well.
Thanks, Chenxin. Hilda, would you like to go next?
Okay. So for me, I think as an international student, I feel like being part of the EcoCentre and volunteer, I feel like I belong to a community. Like I'm not from here, but yeah, I feel like it's like a place for me, and being involved in the activities, like I've become more aware of oh, this is what's happening in my community, like my community in Australia. So yeah, it's the community for me. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And how about for you, Saniya?
Yeah, for me, it's again the same things as both of them have said. It's about just meeting new people, and everybody has such diverse backgrounds, and they know so much more, and everyone's so knowledgeable. So you can learn so many things. Like I have learned so much from the EcoCentre, and I'm not just saying this because we're on the panel today, but I really feel that way. That I feel much more connected to the nature here because I'm not from here, so for me, it's all a new arena, like all the plants, animals, and names, and volunteering with the Eco Center gave me that opportunity to sort of know about these things and feel connected to them, but also work with so many amazing people, and like they have so much knowledge, and we can all learn from each other. So yeah, it has been great, and I've always looked forward to those. I used to always volunteer on Thursdays, so that was the day of the week that I actually always looked forward to because I would be at the Eco Center volunteering, and it's been great. So yeah, I think everyone should go for it. For sure.
Oh, and we love having all of you at the Eco Centre. So thank you. It's a good opportunity also for me to let the audience know that if you would like to volunteer at the Eco Centre, we would love to have you. And it's very easy to do. So one thing I will say about volunteering is if you've been thinking about it, but you're not really sure because you don't necessarily have anyone to go along with you, or you don't want to do it alone, I'll just say this. If you're already here tonight, you're obviously already interested in the environment. So this is the right place for you to come and volunteer. But the chances are that the people that you meet when you go there are doing it alone as well. And they've obviously got that shared interest, and you're going to find things in common with them. So I say to you, bite the bullet, come along to a volunteer induction with us. It's really easy to do. You can jump on our website and find a date that suits you. At the moment, we're running them online so that we can have more people inducted every time. We're getting about 30 people that are really interested at these online inductions that we've been running since about November last year. So lots of interest, lots of great people to meet. I'm meeting so many people as the volunteer coordinator. It's so exciting. And maybe we'll pop a link in the chat there if we can, just for the website to jump in. Now, believe it or not, we've already almost run out of time. So there were a few more questions in here. I'm going to have to pick just one. And I think this is the best one to end with. So the question here is, end goal job each of you aspire towards. So what's your dream job? Chenxin, would you like to go first?
My dream job is something to do with botany, something to do with conserving plant species that are about to go extinct or that are being endangered. Because personally, you can see behind me, there's plants. So I'm very much of a plant person, or gardening, something that seems like a retirement age hobby, but that's very much of my life. So plants, it's something that I would really love to work with in the future.
Sounds good. Saniya, go for it.
Yeah. With me, I think I would love to work in sort of the marine science part of it. So just working with marine animals, and also like the impact of plastic, microplastics, sunscreens, things like that, just with the ocean as well as the rivers. I have a love for water, and I've been involved with the Eco Center and been very fortunate to go along on many like river trawls as well as do beach audits. And yeah, I think that's an area that I would definitely be interested in, and would be, I would say, my dream job to work in that field. Yeah.
Fantastic. And what about you, Hilda?
Me, same as Saniya. I'm keen to work at anything deal with aquatic environment. Yeah.
Fantastic. Oh, well, I wish you all the very, very best. You know what? We've actually got a little bit more time than I thought. So I'm going to just check because I don't want to miss any questions here. All right, bear with me. I'm just going to have a look through here. Okay, here's an interesting one. Someone's asked, what do we think? Why do we think some people are hesitant to take action? What might be holding people back? Any thoughts?
So we've sort of talked about this before as well. So it's not knowing where to start. So the first step to anything is always, you know, the most difficult. It can be intimidating, especially if you're in a new environment, or you know that you have to go into a new environment to be able to do something else. So that's a factor that, you know, that can stop some people from wanting to or being able to step outside the comfort zone. And maybe another thing to add on is, you know, some other preconceived notion about environmental volunteering, or that we feel like we can't do much, so that it just, as an individual, I might not be able to do much. But then until you meet other people, then you can't really resolve that sort of anxiety or doubt about yourself and what you can do for the environment.
Absolutely. Saniya or Hilda, do you have any additional thoughts on that one?
Yeah, for me, I feel like support is what that like stops someone to start a movement, because because everyone needs support to like start something, and like they might like doubt themselves, but yeah, you might need someone to like, oh no, we can do this and stuff like that. Yeah.
I hear you. Yeah.
Also, I think just this saying the same thing as Chenxin. So I think a lot of us feel really overwhelmed by all the environmental problems around us. Like when we look at, say, turn on the news or, you know, read, and it seems like these problems are so big and far beyond us that, you know, anything we do, we feel like as an individual, we can't do much about it. Like, so I've met a lot of people who have good intentions, who want to do something, but also at the same time feel like anything we do is not going to be enough. And, you know, there's a lot of things like people feel like there's no hope left for us, basically. So people are really hesitant to get involved, because ultimately it's like, what's the point? But I don't feel that like that's true, because I do feel like things that we do, they do have an impact. And I mean, as an individual, we might able to have a small impact, but together we can definitely make a much bigger impact. And I mean, at some point we have to start making changes. We can't just keep going the way we are going and expect things to be all right. So I think it's just taking that first step, just saying, okay, you know what, it's fine. I know these problems are big, but I'm gonna sort of go out there and see what I can do. Yeah.
So I'm sort of hearing be aware of what is going wrong, and use that to empower us to do good things and focus on the good things that we are doing. Wow, thank you so much. That was a really, really insightful and wonderful conversation to have with the three of you. I'm so grateful that I had the opportunity to host this panel. And I thank you, Chenxin, Hilda, and Saniya, for all of your contributions, not only tonight, but with the EcoCentre and in your field of work as well. I think you're all going to do some really amazing things. So to our audience, if you did miss it at the start, or you would like to watch the Our Catchment film again, please jump over to our EcoCentre TV channel on YouTube. Once again, the film is produced by Michael J. Lutman, and he did an amazing job. Thanks again, and we'll see you all soon.